Okay, guys, welcome back to the Let's Get Freaky podcast. Very excited, and I know the Freaky fan will be excited too. We have got the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Olly back with us. How are you, brother?
Um, a bit lighter to not have, loads of beard. I think you're the first interview I'm doing actually since I've trimmed the beard, so that's a first.
It looks good.
Other than that, fine. Still soldiering on,
You're
still
looking good,
here.
man. You're
Thank
looking
you.
good. The beard was last time we spoke. It was huge, and
It
now
was, yeah.
it's slightly less, but it still looks good, man.
Uh, Still me. Yeah, it gets to its limit. I mean, it's funny because the first thing somebody said to me was, "You look like you've lost weight," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, I have. I've lost this beard. I've lost a ton of hair."
It's always weird when you shave your beard, like especially like you have a beard for a long time and you shave it and you don't recognize yourself. You don't recognize, you look in the mirror and you're like, who the heck is that? I remember last time I shaved my beard like properly was it's a long. It was about 7 years ago. The last time I completely had no beard,
Uh,
and I walked into my daughter's bedroom and she kind of like went a bit funny,
oh,
like, who the heck is this? I'm
yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
me, it's me.
Well, I went back to the television. When I did TV, I just had a goatee. But the thing with it
Yes.
now being white rather than black is, as soon as you start getting any more around here, you can see it straight away. So I'm stuck with it.
It looks good, man. I said to you, I'm thinking of shaving mine and just having the moustache,
Ooh,
the
ooh,
cowboy look. Not
oh.
sure. I'm not sure what's under here anymore. That's the problem. I don't know what's under there. It could be, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, after 7 years, your whole face might have changed shape.
Exactly. That's what I'm
Anything could happen.
scared of.
You should unwrap it for Christmas.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah, there you go. Uh,
Oh, so you've been on the, if this is the first time people have seen you on Let's Get Freaky, you've been on the show
mm,
three other times now, and they've all been wild episodes. Blown my mind every time. Your knowledge, your memory of dates, names, and it blows my mind because I struggle with my kids' names. So to remember all this knowledge that you have is incredible. For anyone that hasn't seen those episodes, and go back if you haven't, watch them now, listen to them now, wherever you get your podcast. They are fantastic. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh wow! Started off as an archaeologist when I was very, very young, helping my dad dig because he was a volunteer digger. Finished up learning to play the drums. Ended up at art college. I'm really whizzing through this, by the way. Trained as a professional archaeologist. Just about to start that as a career. Ended up getting a record deal. Started working as a session drummer. Did that for 20 plus years, 21, 22 years. Eventually, I just you wear out. Drumming is, probably second only to an Olympic athlete. So my body eventually gave out. So when I retired in the 1990s, well, semi-retired, I went back to doing archaeology again, had a unit for 12 years, wrote loads of books, ended up doing a TV series in the early 2000s called Lost Treasures. That, of course, then balloons into other things. I've ended up doing Ancient Aliens and Beyond Myth and one or two others, and loads of documentaries. And at the moment, I've written 9 books. So I'm still working on the 10th, which is going to take a while. I am notorious for taking a long time to produce books, but when they come out, they're usually all right. Um, and at the moment, I'm just sorting my house out, really. I live in a haunted house, so it takes some keeping up, this does, and just sorting that out. So, yeah, that's kind of, that's what, 50 years, half a century in a minute or
Yeah,
two.
you're possibly the
Yeah.
coolest man on the planet. Rock
Oh, I
star,
wish.
TV
Yeah.
presenter. I mean, it's everything, man.
I just had this philosophy when I left school. I just thought, I'm not going to waste any of this life. You've only got one shot at this. At the moment, I've got less left than I've had in the past. But I just went at it 110%. Don't
Yeah,
waste any of it and see what happens. It's just been a
absolutely, man.
blast. It's absolutely
Best
been a blast.
best way to be.
Yeah.
And you've certainly, as you say, you've done a lot. Still a lot to do.
Oh yeah.
Very, you're an awesome dude, man. As I say, I love to. Every time you've been on, it's like blown my mind. So I'm so excited to do it again. Uh, on the first time you talked, the first episode you did with us, it was like we went into a lot of different subjects,
Yeah.
and one of them was the UFO crash in Wales, which was,
Yeah.
we touched upon it, and you said you're going to go back and come back and go into more detail with it. So I'm very excited to get into that. The UFO world, as we say, is blowing up. Like, I think the
Mm.
conversation's getting bigger and bigger. More people are talking about it. It's becoming more mainstream than ever. 10 years ago, whatever, you tell people you've seen a UFO, you get that look.
Ooh, yeah,
Now you tell people you've seen a UFO, most people will say, yeah, there was this time I saw this strange object that I can't
yeah.
explain. And that's normally what it is, a light in the sky or something that we just can't explain. I've seen UFOs myself, so I know there's something out there, something that they don't tell us, whatever it is. But where do you stand with, before we get into the crash, where do you stand with UFOs in general?
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose it's a peculiar question. How on earth does an archaeologist end up getting into UFOs? Um, well, some people out there will remember the hot summer of 1976 when the temperature just rocketed. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that. It was ridiculous. I was 14 that year, and you could just, I mean, you could live like you could live in the Mediterranean. You could just go and do what you wanted, daytime or nighttime. It never really got cold. So me and a couple of schoolmates went off camping in a field sort of up the way from where I live here. And, middle of the night, I wake up and we couldn't put the tent up, couldn't knock the pegs in the ground. It was baked. We were on a clay field and it was like flipping brick. You just couldn't knock anything into the field. So we slept on top of the canvas. And I woke up in the middle of the night and a beautiful star field, no chemtrailing, no clouds, none of that nonsense, no satellites either at this point. And I'm looking at the sky and I just see this little dot of light starting at the horizon, but it's coming really, really quickly. It's moving very, very fast into the star field and then eventually overhead. So it got vertically over me and I'm watching this thing, good couple of minutes, and then it just goes bang, 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 vanished in a matter of seconds. I've never seen anything move so fast across the entire sky. And I'm just thinking, what was that? What on earth was that? So at that point, I mean, being the type of guy I was, I went off and started looking into UFOs. Anyway, fast forward a little bit, because that's the first encounter, if you like. You're moving through the 70s into the 80s. Of course, at this point, we've had, Close Encounters of the Third Kind and all that sort of stuff's come out. So it's beginning to become a bit more of a thing. People are seeing these things a bit more. Finished a recording session, early 1980s. At this point, I'm a lot older. I'm working as a session drummer. There's a big hill near us here. So I thought, I'll go and sit on top of the hill and wind down. So this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sat on top of this hill looking out across the whole of the Mersey Valley, which is beautiful to see at night when it's a clear night. And then way off to one side, off to my left, is the power station. We had Fiddler's Ferry Power Station, billowing out all this hot steam. And as I look over there, something comes through the steam level with the top of the cooling tower. Now, as you know, the steam is coming out superheated. This is a functioning power station. Anyway, this thing comes through, and my first reaction is, that's a bit low for a helicopter. And then there's no noise. It's got white lights, but it's also got blue and red, and they're kind of a bit like the scout ships, actually, in Close Encounters. It's got these lights scanning, and they keep changing. So they look a bit like vari lights, stage lights. So 1 minute it's red, next minute it's blue, next minute it's white. And it comes through the steam coming off the power station, and it follows the River Mersey. So it goes right up the centre, moving quite slowly, right up the centre of the Mersey Valley. Then it gets about level with the bridge at Warrington, which is about halfway up the valley. And it kind of hesitates. And then all the lights go off. And you just see this black shape about the size of a truck outlined against the town lights. And it goes wallop straight up, vertically straight up. Now, that's pretty amazing. It was so amazing. I wrote it in my diary. So I knew the date, I knew the time. And of course, it's the opening introduction to Europe's Roswell, the book, which I've just brought out. 11 years later, I get a book called Mysteries of the Mid-Mersey Valley by Jenny Randalls, and that's another UFO nod to the past. And it's got this triple sighting. And apparently, a plane coming into Liverpool Airport went over the top of something described as a disc that was lit up on an industrial estate on the Wirral. That then moved and it whizzed away from the industrial estate and went over the top of this hill on the Wirral where there was a bunch of people camping, and they saw it. They saw it fly overhead, describing exactly the same thing I saw. And then it was witnessed heading off down the Mersey Valley, hence it made it into this Mysteries of the Mid-Mersey Valley, to disappear through the steam on the power station. So 11 years later, I put the final chapter to that story. Now that's pretty amazing. But then I'm like, well, what do I do with this? I've got a piece of information. Where do I go with this? It took 34 years to write up what I've just told you, because it's only when I was actually doing another book, on UFO encounters with a friend of mine, Jason Gleaves. He wanted to do this book about people's encounters. So I wrote that up as an account for his book. And it's just amazing how all of those things had linked up. But to actually do it and put it out as this is a series of documented events, it took 34 years to get it into print. So I thought, well, it's about time I use that as an introduction. So that's the introduction to Europe's Roswell, 40 years since impact. So that was my introduction to UFO. So of course, by this point, I'm convinced, they're out there. I've seen two of them.
Absolutely. I mean, you see something like that, and it changes everything, man. You know that there's more, whether it's technology that our governments have, which I'm dubious about, I don't know, or if these things are from another planet or interdimensional. All these things they could be, but once you see something like that, it changes the game, man. It changes everything.
Yeah, it's reality. Suddenly it becomes reality. To be honest with you, even now, right to this day, I have no idea where these things are actually coming from. Nobody's put the hand up and gone, yeah, it's one of ours. That hasn't happened. Well, it hasn't happened yet. There's a lot of people hinting that it's something's going on. I don't know. I swing between it being, real, something interdimensional or alien or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure that they're just dropping in from other planets. I don't think it's quite that simple. It's kind of that's sci-fi as far as I'm concerned. Or it could be that something that, say, skunk works has been developed over the 90 years since Second World War, or they've back engineered something that's come from somewhere else. I'm leaning towards, if it's something else, it's dimensional. That's where I'm leaning, in that direction. And then the other way, I think we do have what can be described as super technology now. I think there's things flying around, and we've got no idea what most of these things are, because somebody somewhere is making them and then chucking them up and not telling anybody. I mean, the latest one is the Manta Ray drone, which is a drone that can go, it can fly in our atmosphere perfectly well, and then it can drop below water. It can go into the ocean. Now, there must be, I don't know, 15, 20 years of people saying, well, I saw this thing and it came up out of the ocean, and it shot off. And I'm thinking, well, that could be the Manta Ray. It could be, or a prototype of that particular drone. Yeah. So every now and again, something leaks out and you think, yeah, maybe that's what we're seeing.
But what is it? Is it the stealth bomber in the US? The black triangle?
Oh no, we've got black triangles over here.
Yeah,
that's a great one from the 1990s, because we've got this big hill called Winter Hill, and it's got a radio transmitter on it, and people go up there to enjoy the view and whatnot. And then we had this massive spate of people actually drawing these triangles with lights on the corners, with a big light in the middle, and they're whizzing overhead. And this is happening every week, and it's going on right through the sort of 1990s. And then the Ministry of Defence eventually, fairly recently, put the hand up and said, yes, we were flying test drones out of Manchester Airport. And that's what they are. The flying triangles now. Yeah. The MOD have admitted that they are stealth drones. They were flying test models of these. But that ticks most of the boxes. Like everything else, it's like 90% of sightings probably that explains. But there's still 10% of stuff. I mean, there's things whizzing around in Wales, that don't seem to correspond to these triangular drones. And there is the question of size. They seem to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, especially in America, and for no apparent reason.
Absolutely.
Some have been described as like flying cities. They're so big. Well, that's clearly not what they were flying out of Manchester Airport.
Yeah, man. I mean, we had that spate last December, where there was constant sightings over New Jersey of drones, and obviously some were drones that people were like flying, but some could not be explained. And that's happened in Europe recently. It happened in Europe before. It happened in New Jersey as well. These things are happening all over the place.
Well, it happened at Manchester Airport again as well. We had a ball.
Yes, yeah, like the blue
ball.
sphere, was that?
Yeah, the blue sphere that came down onto the runway. And everyone's like, no, it's a photographic anomaly. No, we didn't see that. No, the pilot misreported it. No, rubbish. We actually, at the time, the pilot took a photo on his mobile phone and radioed it in. That's the fact, you know. So there was a ball of some kind there. And then, like you say, they started popping up all over the place, you know.
Yeah. Well, my granddad in the 80s or early 90s, he saw like a triangle shape. He was walking his dogs on this golf course, and he saw this black object come from the trees. And he said, obviously, he's no idea what this was, and he's got his dogs, and he's gone into the
Yeah.
forest, and he said this thing is like following him over the trees. He could, as he's looking up, he's seeing this thing, and he said he's scared, like he's very worried about
Oh,
this.
yeah.
He's come out of the forest, and there's a little scout group walking along, and he said he just joined them, and this thing disappeared. But this was obviously this is before like today's time. Like I remember my granddad telling me this when I was a kid, and I recently, my granddad's passed now, but I recently asked my nan about it. I said, like, was that a true story that granddad was telling me? And she went, yeah, yeah, because my granddad
Mm,
did sometimes like make things up for the kids, like to keep
yeah.
us entertained. But she said, no, yeah, I remember him coming home that day and saying about that because he told me that story so many times.
Well,
Um,
that's shades of Rendlesham Forest, isn't it? I mean, the Rendlesham Forest incident, that was essentially a black triangle. That
mhm.
you know, that's what it was in a forest, and it raised itself up and went beyond the trees. So it's very, very similar. That they were
Yeah,
definitely around at that point. Yeah.
yeah, man. That had a hieroglyphs on the side of that as well, didn't it? That one.
Oh, and gave off pulses and all
Yeah.
sorts of weird stuff. Yeah, that's a whole story all of its own.
Yeah, man. Well, we've just as we talking today last week, the Age of Disclosure documentary came out.
Yeah.
We both haven't seen it, so we can't
Yeah.
say too much of it. We haven't paid the fee
Yeah.
to see it yet. But I mean, it's very interesting. We said that this word disclosure is used quite a lot at the moment. We're hearing it quite a lot. There's not a lot of disclosure coming out. The things that we're hearing are stuff that we already pretty much know. We're
Yeah.
getting drip fed certain amounts of information. I mean, I guess we're at the stage now where your average person will agree that there's something going on that we don't understand, and that's kind of where we are. And yeah, we're told that we're going to be told more in next week, and it doesn't come. Um, it's very difficult, and it seems to be controlled by
Yeah.
higher powers, a government, whoever it is that's leaking out this info. I remember watching a documentary years ago. Because like you, I've been into this stuff,
Mm,
long before it's become like a mainstream.
yeah.
It was about at least 10 years ago. I watched this documentary. I can't remember what it was called. It was on Amazon and it was great, a great show. And it was pretty much what the age of disclosure is now, right? People talking
Yeah.
about government officials talking about it. And they said that this subject is going to be drip fed over the years because people won't be able to handle it. I'm not sure about this, but people won't be able to handle it if it's just thrown out into the mainstream. Yep, there's definitely visitors from another dimension coming to see us, and people
Mhm.
will go crazy, stop working, and riot in the streets. I'm not sure that's the case, but that's what they said on this, and they said it will be like drip, drip, drip fed, and that seems to be happening. We do seem to be getting a slow stream of information.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can actually speak into that to some extent because with what happened with the crash in Wales, that was an interesting case in point because that actually started, if you like, at the end. So all the stuff that they didn't want you to know back in the 80s and 90s and 2000s was in that crash. It was all there, and it got out. Which I can, like I say, I can speak into that because when we did the documentary, we covered the crash 25 years on because the crash happened in 1983 in the January, very early in the January of 83. So we produced the documentary. We went out, we filmed the site, we interviewed people, tried to come to some conclusions, did a few reconstructions. But the thing that was left over, of course, was crash debris. So we could actually show the crash debris. So we did it. It's just called Europe's Roswell. We put it out. It went out on Amazon Prime eventually. That's where it landed. And nobody said a word about it. We got no radio interviews. We got no reviews. We got no press. And it was a big American company. It was Reality Films that put it out in the States. So it was worldwide release. Nobody picked it up. Nobody. Now, I could only, from that, I could only make one of two conclusions. Number one, it was everybody everywhere was told not to touch it. Don't go anywhere near it. It's still top secret. This is not something we want anybody to know. Or the other alternative is that within the UFO community, people like the mystery. They like to be, quote, believers. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily want to come face to face with hard evidence, and the
Mhm.
facts, which was a shame because actually we didn't reach any conclusions, and it still remains a mystery. But that kind of then that does definitely become part of the whole disclosure thing because of the nature of it and the way and the timing. I mean, the 2008 the documentary came out, the Europe's Roswell. And like I said, it was just roundly ignored. Both sides of the Atlantic just ignored it, pretended it never happened.
Wow.
Um, which was, I mean, it did all right on Amazon Prime. People are still watching it now. It's still out there.
It's on there
Uh,
now.
well, I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime, but it's on YouTube. You can
Hmm.
definitely find it on YouTube. And it's interesting. It makes interesting watching. But I think we kind of jumped the gun. I think we were the first one out the trap, so to speak. We kind of jumped the gun on it because there's been loads of talk about fragments found at Roswell, lots of bits that were turned up. Little individual bits and bobs have popped up over the years. Nobody's really tested it. Nobody's really bothered with it. Nothing's really happened. We're talking here six fairly sizable chunks of this thing in at least four different forms, as it turns out, four different parts, which was a substantial discovery. That's quite a large find. Um, but no, it just didn't take off at all. So back to the disclosure thing they've just put out, it's, I don't know, nearly 40 odd different people, experts and whatnot, talking about all these different things. 90% of what's in that documentary, I already know will be the same as everything that's already been out. And it will have one or two snippets of the next step in this process,
Hmm.
which will take us forward a little bit. Interesting what you were saying about people kind of running around in terror, like the day the earth stood still kind of panic, and all that. Um, I'm not so sure that would have happened, even
Hmm.
back in the 1990s. I'm also not sure that the explanation is quite what they think it is. I think that it's a two-pronged cover up. The first cover up is the fact that where these things are coming from, I've always potentially thought that they're actually us, but not in the way you would imagine. I have this thing which I have like the Star Trek syndrome, which is every single alien has a head, two eyes, a mouth, two arms, two legs, and a body, and they all look the same because that's all that the budget would allow. Well, a lot of these things that are coming out of these ships suffer from the same syndrome. They are basically humanoid in shape. Doesn't matter what they're covered in, tin foil or scales or shiny, whatever, grey, green, they're all humanoid in shape. So I've been leaning more towards that being a version, a variation of us, which, funnily enough, Chris Carter did the same thing in the X Files. He never quite answered the question whether they were genetically hybridized or alien or, created purposely as, drivers of flying saucers. He never really answered that question. And I think they're time travelers because, and here's the kicker, if you come from the future and you come back in time, you've got a problem. Okay, you're in danger of changing your own time. It's a paradox. You could actually annihilate yourself by accident and thus ruining it all. On the other hand, if we go way back, we're talking tens of thousands of years back, and there was a civilization in our past that managed to crack the code of space and time. So for them, time and space don't exist. They can go anywhere to any point in time. I would imagine they'd want to have a look at where the planet ends up. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think these craft are coming from the very, very distant past. So they're more like proto-humans. They're a super race of us from the past. They turn up, they abduct cows, they abduct people, they abduct things from the natural world, they do tests, they're trying to find out where we're at. I think they're trying to find out where we're up to. So that's the first aspect of it, okay?
Hmm.
Which I think the public, if that turns out to be the truth, the public probably would struggle with the idea that time and space is not what we think it is.
Hmm.
There's not that many Teslas and Einsteins and people like that out there. Hawkins. It's a tough pill to swallow, that one. The second thing here, which is really important, is if they're not from outer space, is that because we can't get out to outer space and they can't get back onto planet Earth either because we're in a gravitational ball surrounded by flying debris that's whizzing through a galaxy full of gas and heat and radiation and goodness knows what else. Well, that's the second part of it, because if that turns out to be true, then the entire satellite space shots, moon landing, you name it, Voyager, all of that just goes straight out the window because it's an
Yes.
impossibility. So that's another side to this as well. So you've got the conspiracy, you've got the cover up, and they're clearly not telling us what the reality is, in that respect, or in respect of what these things necessarily are.
Oh man, I'm getting so excited. I'm sitting there like, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's fascinating, and it's endless the things that it could be.
yeah.
It might even be that we can't even fully fathom what these things are. Um, but I don't think we landed on the moon. I really don't
No, it's
think.
nonsense. It's
I
absolute
think. Ah,
bag of
just.
nonsense.
I mean, I've looked into it, and I'm trying to because I get very excited about this kind of stuff, and I try and bring myself down and try and be a little bit skeptical. I'm trying to do that more, but I can't. You look at the moon landing, it's like there's no way we would
No,
be up there now. We'd be we'd have hotels up there now if that was the
yeah, we'd be
case.
all over it.
You know,
Yeah,
we'd be
no, it's
back.
there's I mean you might want to do a program on it at some point. There's 10,000 reasons. I could spend the next
Yeah,
hour
we've
and a
got to do
half
an
just
episode on the moon landing.
rabbiting on about
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, we could certainly do that.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's one of
yeah.
those. It's so like because like my nan, for example, I love my nan to pieces, and she's great. I said to her about the moon landing. She was like, "No, I watched it on the TV." I'm like, I don't want to go there.
No, it's
No.
funny. I watched it on the TV and I thought it was a bag of poo, and I
Yeah,
was about 3 years old, 2 years old when I watched it, and I
yeah,
wasn't having it.
yeah. And there you go.
I've never believed it ever, but
You
there you
look at
go.
the footage. I know
Yeah.
we can do an episode on this, but you look in the footage of the craft that they used.
Oh,
I mean, it's like a tent in your backyard, It's
yeah,
like there's no
yeah.
way. And
Oh,
the technology that they don't have anymore, apparently, as well.
well, yeah.
I mean
And
that,
all the bits they've lost, and
yeah, come
yeah.
on, man. Come on.
Nah, nah,
So,
it's not like
but
that. So
that alone, if you take that
yeah.
alone and they do come out and say, look, okay, we did lie back then. We've dragged it on a little bit. We're very sorry. We're just worried about how you was going to react to it, but it was a long time
Mm,
ago. We were battling with the Russians, so that's why we did it. Whatever. Fair enough. But if that is a lie, obviously everything, all these conspiracies,
yeah.
we know conspiracies are real.
Yeah.
There's some people out there that, talk about us having tinfoil hats, and some conspiracies maybe, but some are real. Like we
Oh,
know they are.
absolutely, absolutely, and like you say, every now and again somebody drops a clanger and admits it,
Yeah.
and even admissions come slowly. Somebody might say something, 20 years ago, and then 10 years ago, and then eventually, like you say, eventually it creeps out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, again, picking up the same thread as we kind of left off, the whole idea of interdimensional existence as well. There is the possibility when you watch programs like Skinwalker Ranch and what have you, where they've got portals opening and things coming through. I've done a couple of talks on that now, where we are only living in about 0.03% of what's actually there in terms of frequency, because
Yes.
that's all we can see, hear, smell, touch, feel, etc. The light spectrum, all the radio spectrums, there's just so much going around, whizzing around, that maybe they're right next to us. Maybe
Absolutely.
they're just becoming visible and then going invisible
Yeah.
again. Maybe yesterday's angels are actually today's aliens.
hmm
It's because historically, as well as an archaeologist, obviously there's been things in the sky for centuries, absolutely centuries. As long as man's been recording stuff, we've been observing things in the sky that are not easy to explain.
hmm
But whether or not they're there all the time, or whether they're coming from somewhere else, mind you, if you haven't got any time and you haven't got any space, that's a moot point. It's irrelevant
hmm
in a sense. They are there all the time because past, present, and future are all the same to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shadow figures and things like that a lot
Well,
of people see. I've seen things like that I can't explain. Oh, we're
yeah,
getting a glimpse at something that is always there.
yeah, yeah,
And they're kind of living in their world and they're getting a glimpse of maybe, I don't know, but there definitely seems to be a lot going on around us that we can't see. And the paranormal seems to be a lot of that,
yeah.
that we're getting a glimpse at every now and again. And we can't
Yeah, well,
explain it.
And the key to all that must be frequency. Like, when you've got a trail of, Bigfoot footprints going across a mud bank and it just vanishes in the middle of the mud bank,
Yeah, yeah.
disappears, and things like that. There's Bigfoot that have been filmed that literally fade out halfway through the film,
Hmm.
things like that. They do disappear, they come and go, So maybe, like you say, ghosts, spirits, entities, cryptids, cryptozoology, all this sort of thing, is a Loch Ness monster a ghost? Is that why we can't
Yeah,
find it?
yeah.
But are all these things there all the time anyway? I mean, are they at the other end of a wormhole, or are they dropping
Hmm.
through our frequency? I think we're in that time now in history, the beginning of the 21st century, where all those topics, they need to come out a bit more, with what they know. CERN, and things like that.
Oh,
People
yes.
experimenting at CERN. Um, Honestly, the stuff we're finding out,
My my
it's mind-boggling.
my mum lives right near Cern. She lives right near Cern. She lives in France, but she's
Yeah,
near the
I've got
border.
I've got a friend whose brother works there, so
Yes. Oh, it
that
is weird, isn't it, when you hear some of these
yeah, what they
things?
come out with, yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah,
think my mum knows about three people that work there, different
mm,
compartments.
yeah,
Um, and it's very like, oh, the cleaners stick to this part, and they can only
yeah.
go here or there, can't talk about too much. It's very strange, and they're expanding. I believe it's
Oh,
getting
believe yeah, they're going to
getting a
make one
lot
that's
bigger.
about 4 or 5 times the size of the one they've got. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. So they're doing something. They're getting results. They're doing something, man. It's very
yeah,
strange.
yeah.
It is wild. It is. This world is wild. Going back to what you were saying about the aliens possibly being like a future version or a past
Past.
version of
Yeah,
us, and the fact that because I know we're going to get into the crash in Wales,
yeah,
but
yeah,
there's been a lot of UFO crashes, supposed crashes where the crash retrieval teams have come in. There's like special op teams that come in and deal with this. And I've had people on the podcast that, say that they have been a part of those, crash retrieval
yeah.
teams and things like that. And a lot of people, a new kind of idea behind that is that these are like gifts. Like I say gifts, but like gifts to show us, here's the technology, uh, put it back together and see what you can. And are they kind of playing with our, playing with us basically and showing us a little bit of,
Well, the universe is still made entirely out of mathematics, and I still think they suffer from chaos formula. I think every now and again they get it wrong. I mean, like the crash, Roswell, the famous crash at Roswell. Everybody assumed from the get-go that was one, but actually there were two. There were two crashes either side of Corona. Two vehicles came down, and the thought now, the thinking now is that actually the vehicles hit each other. They crashed into each other and then hit the deck. So
whoa,
that's a mistake. That's a technical fault of a big scale. And the same thing is true of the crash in Wales, because when you look at what happened there, it looks like they materialized in a position where they were heading straight for a forest. And the ship was not designed to take low impact branches and trees and things like that, which caused the underside of this vehicle to shatter. And that's where we got the debris from. But it looked like it just turned up in the wrong place at the wrong time. So a lot of the crashes are like that. When you
hmm,
talk to people, I don't think they deliberately downed any of them.
okay,
I think they are accidents.
yeah,
Unless it's military. I mean, if it turned out to be one of ours, well, who knows where that's going? That could all be part of the disclosure formula.
yeah.
Um,
And we do
but
make a lot of mistakes as people.
and we do, yeah. Well, we're victims to the chaos formula as well. Error is a part of life,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, but I mean, in some of these cases as well, humanoid bodies are said to be brought
Mm,
out.
yeah,
I believe was
yeah.
that the case in Roswell as well? There was
Yes,
bodies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There were a couple of aliens recovered from there that were taken back to the airbase, and they
Hmm.
were witnessed as being there. Apparently, I think the general consensus is two dead, one alive. What happened to them is, subject to enormous debate,
Hmm.
but there's little doubt that it was definitely an accidental crash. There's little doubt.
Yeah. Some say one of them aliens like lived at the base and like kind of started communicating and stuff. I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's hard with this stuff because again, we don't know. We hear a lot of different rumors and conspiracies. But it is interesting, man. Let's go to the if you don't mind going through the whole
Oh, I'll give you the story.
Yeah,
Yeah, you want the crash, don't
I
you?
want the Europe
That's what
Roswell.
we're here for. Okay, as far as we can tell, you're talking about the first few days of 1983. It's winter. It's a little village called Llanilar, just outside Aberystwyth in mid Wales. The crash site is actually about a mile and a half outside the village. It's just in the middle of Wales. There isn't anything, so that is the nearest village to the crash site. Okay, so get that out of the way to begin with. It didn't come down in the village. It hit a farm owned by a guy called Irwell Evans, who has subsequently passed away. I'm informed, so that's a shame. We've lost him. I did get to meet him and interview him, but his statement made it through to the press. But I'll come to that in a minute. His statement remained the same throughout. Anyway, middle of the night, it would appear something materialized. It or flew in and hit the top of some trees adjacent to sheep fields. So it went through the trees, and the actual swathe it cut was about 25 to 30 foot wide. You could see where it cut all the trees through the top and scattered all the branches across the fields with enough metallic debris to cover 4 sheep fields. Now, in Wales, that's like the size of a couple of football fields. Okay, that is an enormous amount of scattered debris. And then it flew off, which is a bit odd, because if this is one of ours, if we've made this, any kind of vehicle, any plane, any drone, anything that loses that amount of stuff sufficient to cover that area, we ought to be looking for some kind of a thing stuck in the ground, somewhere, which was my thought when I was approached to look into it as a case. Anyway, Irwell gets up the next day, goes out to deal with his sheep, and of course, there's all this stuff all over the fields. So he does what anybody would do. He phones the police, phones the local police force, and says, "I think we've had a plane crash. There's something here that isn't right." So the police say, "Okay, leave it with us." Police then phone the local airbase, and about 3 or 4 hours after he made the call, you end up with a crash recovery team turning up. Now, he described this team. He said, "Okay, you've got the police. The police are there, police vehicles, including fairly senior police officers, stripes and all that." He said, "Then you've got the RAF are there. They've got ordinary people collecting all this stuff up, ordinary squaddies and what have you. And there's a couple of senior officers there." And then he said, "There's guys in suits with dark glasses walking around the place, and they're ordering everybody else around. And they arrived in, unmarked vehicles. So clearly everybody's on this. Everybody's on it." So Irwell said by the end of the day, they'd got most of it, but then they put floodlights up and they carried on clearing these fields right through the night. So then he gets up again the next morning and everything's gone. There's nothing there. Somewhere in that process, and I can't say when, but somewhere in that process, somebody leaked information about the crash to the Sunday Express. Okay, they spoke to a guy somewhere in that office when they came back from work, because they were on the New Year break or whatever. So they returned, they start writing again, and it goes to a guy called Andrew Chapman, who is the guy who's responsible for writing it up. Somebody hands him the story. So he writes up the story and it goes out in the Sunday Express. I think it's the 23rd of January. It appears as, UFO crash in Wales. And it's quite a detailed article. There's an interview in there with Irwell, who, through his lifetime, he said, "I have nothing more to say. It's all in that article. That's it. I have nothing more to say." Didn't want to appear on camera, didn't really want the site to be known. So we've never released the coordinates or anything like that. And it actually describes everything I've just told you, except for the woods. Now, it turns out that a guy now called Gary Rowe enters the equation. And Gary is the head man, if you like, at the UFO group that's looking after North Wales at this point. And he gets newspaper clippings sent to him. Because in the 1980s, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, emails and all that. So he gets this newspaper clipping and he reads it and he thinks, "I know Irwell. I know this farmer guy. I'll phone him." So he phones him. This is at the end of January. And he says, "Can we come down and have a look at the crash site?" And Irwell's like, "Yeah, fine. Come and have a look. But, there won't be anything here because it's all been cleared away." So Gary goes down there, he looks at the crash site. Sure enough, there's nothing on these fields except sheep. And then he spots the woods. He spots this cutout in the trees, and he thinks there's no way, middle of the night, they're going to have cleared all the debris out of a woodland. So him and the couple of guys that are with him dive into the woodland, and sure enough, that's where they get this half a dozen or so fragments, pieces, if you like, of the craft. They make an arrangement then to go back again 2 weeks later, back in February, to have another look to see what they can find. And in the meantime, Gary gets a phone call off Irwell, and Irwell's like, "You're not going to believe this. They're taking the woods away. They've come in with diggers and bulldozers, and they're clearing the woods." And Gary's like, "Leave it with me." So Gary then phones the Woodland Trust, the guys in charge of the woods and what have you, and they say, "Oh, it's wind damage. We're clearing it because of wind damage, you know." Yeah, exactly. He didn't believe them either. He said that he could. It's almost like the guy at the other end of the phone was smiling. He could almost tell, was not taking it seriously. So the woods was cleared away. So at this point, they've got the debris. They have the debris. The story then moves on slightly because in the 1990s, Gary had a couple of friends then that worked for British Aerospace. So he sent a piece of this into British Aerospace to see what it was. And the report, an informal report, but it was typed up, so he has got copies of it, came back via his contact, basically saying, "We can't do any expensive testing on this, but we've had a jolly good look at it. Prodded it and poked it and had a look at it under magnifying glasses and microscopes and things. And it looks like it might be duralumin, which is a trade name for different alloys, different variations of aluminium. But we're not sure. And we don't know what the sticky substance on it is, the resin, and we don't know what the green coating on it is either. We have no idea, but it looks like duralumin. And at that point, that's where the whole thing ground to a standstill. Except when it came to me. I met Gary at a conference in Blackpool. There used to be a big conference up there called Probe. And I was doing a talk on King Arthur, and he was doing, this UFO thing. Anyway, I'm like, hairy hippie covered in hippie gear, and he's like a suited and booted, proper professor looking guy. And we ended up in the Indian afterwards, as most things happen in restaurants like this. And he kind of got chatting to me, and he said, "You're an archaeologist, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "How do you fancy coming and digging up a UFO?" At which point I'm like, that's a career ender if ever there was one. But the clincher was then when he said, "And I've got 6 pieces of it in a case in my garage." At that point, it's like, bing, all the lights come on. And I'm like, right, now we're dealing with hard physical evidence here. This is not fuzzy lights in the sky or, just testimony. It's hard physical evidence. Anyway, it took a while. So eventually the outcome of that was this documentary that we did in 2008, because obviously that was as far as we'd got to that point. And Gary was like, "Yeah, all right then. You can interview me. Let's film it." There was a nice little story actually that came out, and we didn't film this story. It was something we were told while we were filming. And he said, "This stuff must be really important," he said, because in February, he said, I got a knock on the door. Now, he lives in an old-fashioned bungalow with a glass door. And he said as he was going to answer the door, he could see these 2 black figures standing in the doorway. So he knew what was coming. So he opened the door, and sure enough, there's 2 men in black, incomprehensible badges, dark glasses, hats, and he said he glanced up the close that he lives in, and there's 2 SUVs there, black, with no number plates, all the windows blacked out. And basically, the front guy just says to him, we'd like our material back, please." And Gary says, "Well, you can't have it." And they're like, "What do you mean we can't have it?" He said, "Well, I've taken one of the fragments," he said, "that we recovered." He said, "I've broken it up into 100 little tiny pieces, which I've put into key rings." He said, "And I've given a key ring to every single person I know that's connected with the media." He said, "And as long as you let me keep my pieces of metal, I won't release any of these pieces to the media." And he said, "These guys," he said, "this guy just, docked his hat at him like that, and they turned and they just walked away, got in the SUVs and drove out of the close, never to be seen again." That makes it into the book. I mean, I'd tell that story again in the book, but
Did he actually do that as well? Did he actually give the key rings to?
yes. They do turn up from time to time. My publisher, Philip Mantle, he's got one,
Yeah.
which was sent to him by somebody in the post who was getting rid of it. So he got that one. There's a couple of other people I know out there that have got them, and I've got one.
Oh
So the actual
wow.
fragments, the fragments are out there.
Yeah.
Only
Wow. And
Gary knows who's got them though. All of them.
wow, that's wild. And do
Yeah.
you think possibly that kind of saved him in a way? Like, because I
Well,
don't
yeah,
have.
I don't think they were there for him. I don't think they were there to do him any harm.
Yeah,
But that was about the best leverage you could possibly have to not give the pieces of metal back.
absolutely.
Also, it's a clear indication that the thing had then got out into the public domain that the authorities didn't want in the public domain. At that point, um, there you go. That was back in the
Wow.
1980s.
Yeah. Wow. Because we know like the Men in Black. We hear a lot of accounts of people coming
Yeah,
across these shadow agents, whoever they are. Very strange. Obviously, there's the famous movie which sort of really
yeah.
put it out there, Will Smith. But I mean, we hear a lot of dark stories relating to these characters as well. And when they turn up, it's never normally a good thing.
No.
So he's a brave man.
Well,
You
there were
know?
books written in the 1950s and 60s about them that made them out to be aliens themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
The Mothman prophecies. I'm sure
Oh,
there's a
yeah,
Men in
yeah,
Black in that as well. I mean,
yeah.
they come up everywhere where there's, aliens. What do you think they are? I know we're going a little bit off the.
Well,
What
no,
do
we're not necessarily going off it. I think they are genuinely part of the Secret Service, but I think they are international.
Mhm.
I think actually that the Men in Black films, in a very jokey sort of jovial way, actually does tell you who and what they are. They're not protecting the Earth from the scum of the universe. They're not doing any of that nonsense. But they're everywhere. When they did Men in Black International, I'm like, well, now we're getting closer to the truth. I
Mhm.
think it's one organisation that is woven into military all over the place, that deals with these kind of incidents. I mean, we've done a few freedom of information things as well, which I can get into, and we've done another set of analysis which I can get into, and that does point in that direction that that's actually what they are.
Interesting. Let's go.
All right then. Well, all right. Yeah, I'll jump in. Um, okay, so we've done the 80s, we've done the 90s. We're now into the 2000s. So we're into 2008. Documentary comes out, and that was good as far as it went. It got full color images of this debris out there, and basically nobody knew what it was. Nobody had a clue. Not in 2008. So you fast forward a little bit further, and another 15 years later, and it's 40 years. And at this point, I'm working with Philip Mantle, who is a Flying Disc Press, who does UFOs. That's what his specialist thing is. So the first book I give him is an archaeology book about human DNA. The second book I give him is Mysteries of King Arthur. So we get into the third book, and he's like, "Don't you think you should really give me a book on UFOs by now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all right then. Let's do Europe's Roswell, because it's 40 years. Let's go back and revisit all the people and the analysis and the metal and the material and the story, and let's go and do it as a 40-year thing, because it's never been brought out as a book, which at this point it hadn't. So we literally, went round the carousel again. We spoke to as many people as we could. Like I said, Irwell had gone by this point, and his family weren't that bothered. They knew all about it, but they were like, "No, there's nothing to see here," kind of thing. So really, the actual site, the crash site, and the family there, they faded out, and I think that's the right way for that to go. Because there isn't anything there. I mean, if anybody knows anything about Wales, Welsh sheep fields, you've got this tiny little skin of grass growing over solid, limestone everywhere. It's just all, so if anything is left there, it'll be a miracle, because it's not like the desert. You don't kind of go whoomp, and leave all
Mhm.
this debris behind. You kind of go bang and bounce off it, and that's it. There's nothing left. And like I say, the woods has gone, so presumably everything is gone now. So we went back and we revisited it and started writing the book. And I thought, right, this is an opportunity to let everything out. So pretty much everything I've told you, the key rings, my stories, all that's all in the book. We didn't leave anything out, including all the high resolution black and white photographs, because we reworked the photographs. They're all in there. Every single photo we've got of that debris, and a lot of new photographs, new bits and bobs, is in that book. So it is a definitive, edition, if you like. But Philip, being Philip, he's like, Well, I know a few laboratories. I know a few people around the world. We could send this off and see what we get. We'd had a bash at doing some freedom of information, but Philip's like, right, we'll have another go. We'll do some more. Um, so anyway, we decide with the analysis. Okay, we've got the English analysis, if you like. The British analysis is British Aerospace, and that's the starting point. So we said, right, what we'll do is we'll send a sample to Australia, and we'll send another sample to America. We'll not talk to either of them. We'll say we've sent any of these samples. Oh, and he got some new samples off Gary as well. He got 3 fragments. As it turns out, the fragments we sent, the one we sent to Australia, is not the same part of the craft as the one we sent to America. There apparently are 2 different pieces of metal and compositions involved, which we'd always suspected, but we didn't know for sure. So sent the one to Australia. The Australians come back and they say, okay, we're going to lean in the direction of what British Aerospace have said, but it's not aluminium. It is a fairly exotic mixture of different metals and what have you. We'd have no idea what the green rubbery substance on it is, the green coating, but we do know that the grey substance, which is the resin part of it, looks a bit like, and they quoted this type of American glue. So when that result came back, me and Philip are like, well, that's it. That's it now. It's one of ours. That's wrecked it. That's ruined it, basically. Then the American results come back. Now, you've got to remember that it's got the same resin stuck on that metal. It's slightly different. The coating on that, the green coating, is made up of rubbery looking hexagons. And they sent this thing back, and basically the gist of it is, yes, there's lots of different bits of stuff in the metal, but the predominant part of the metal is lanthanum. It's this substance called lanthanum or lanthanum, which is an exotic metal that's found in everything. It's more common than soil. It's everywhere. But that also means it's in the whole of the universe. It's in meteorites, comets, it's in the upper atmosphere, it's all over the planet. And they said, we have no idea what this resin is. It's not American, whatever it is, glue, because we'd know what it was if that's what it was. And it's not. We don't know what it is. We can't identify the resin, and we can't really identify this blue rubbery substance. So at this point, I do a bit of research into lanthanum. It is so expensive to extract because it's an impurity in everything. Nobody would spend the millions of dollars necessary to extract it. Nobody would. It's ridiculous, okay? It's in the new part of the periodic table. We've got the old periodic table we all learnt at school. Well, there's a new part. The lanthanamides are the first ones to come up on that new table, and didn't exist in the 1980s. That wasn't something that was anywhere in the 1980s. So it's alien and it's exotic. Okay, there's no doubt about it. Now, I've always argued that whatever they're making these ships out of, whatever these craft are made of, it has to be made of the same stuff that everything else is made of, because all they're going to do is take the elements and use them in a different way, but they're still stuck with the same elements. If they're going to operate in our space, they're going to have something that is here in our space. So the thing that really did it, because then, I mean, we went public on this. We put some of the results out. I've said it in interviews, things like that. There was one scientist guy, that came back and he's like, well, I know what this is. This is, part of a stealth bomber. It's dropped off a crashed tail or something off a stealth bomber. So I actually emailed him on his podcast, and I just said, know anything about lanthanum? Know anything about lanthanum? Anyway, he basically messaged back and went, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. That is not used by the military or by anybody else. It is far too expensive to reproduce. And then,
oh, wow.
And then he took his podcast down because that's what the metal is. It's lanthanum. So there's no argument with that. You've also got to remember that these sheets of metal on the original field, some of them are 6 foot square. That's 2 meter square sheets of lanthanum that have covered the equivalent to 2 football pitches. That's more lanthanum in one sheet of metal than has been extracted by the human race in the entire of its history, as far as we know. It doesn't turn up anywhere else.
Yeah.
But the whole of the outer shell of this thing was made of lanthanum. So, moving on a little bit, let's get a little bit exclusive here because what we've also done, there are two other aspects to this. We've now sent a fourth analysis, and this is exclusive to you because we've only just got the results back, and we sent it to Greece. So, this is now the Greek analysis. And this is the same material as we sent to America. Now, they've come back and they've said, we're having trouble with this material. Because what happens is when you bombard it with things like an electron microscope, whatever, it bombards the signal back and it distorts. So you end up with a distorted photograph. And they've basically come back and they've gone, well, we've got some of the metals that are in this, but we're not sure about what they all are. But more importantly, the rubbery hexagonal substance appears to be electrically conductive, which would make the outer shell of this craft like a giant printed circuit. You could send things electrically, signals and whatnot, over the surface of this thing in every direction, as long as you had some means of controlling it. So that's new information because I always thought that's what it was for. We always guessed that that's what these hexagons were probably for. And they've come back and they've confirmed that. But they've not really added anything. They didn't find any American glue either. They had trouble. They struggled with the resin. And they also found some exotic fibers in the material, which they have managed to get an analysis on, but they're not something that they can easily identify. They don't know why these fibers are in there. So, pardon me, it's getting more complex. It's getting more complicated.
Oh,
so the analysis now, that's it. We don't know if we're going to do any more, but that's brought you right up to date. Freedom of information. I love this one. This is great because obviously we sent it out to everybody, police got it, mountain rescue got it, local Air Force base got it, military got it, anybody we could send one out to, everybody, just everybody, we sent this out. And every single one of them came back. No, we haven't got any information. We don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing in our records. We haven't got a clue. So at this point, we're like, well, we're just going to have to put the book out, aren't we? We'll have to go out as it is, with a negative result. And then Central Records Office at Kew in London. And I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but I can see this person sat there looking at our request. And they must have been thinking, how can we give them the information they want without telling them anything? So we get this thing back and it says, yes, we have a record of this, but we can't give it to you because it's sealed for 70 years. So hang on, it gets better. So we're like, right, okay, you have just confirmed that this incident happened. It actually happened. So we know you've got records of this. We know it's at the Central Record Office in Kew and they're sealed for 70 years. So that's just confirmed that we're not, just blowing hot air. Then it goes on to say, we cannot release any details of the people associated with this incident because they are still living and they are protected by the Official Secrets Act, blah, blah, etc., etc. And we're like, right, you've just told us that there was a recovery crew. People did turn out and they did clean up the site and all the rest of it. And some of them are still alive. And that's why you can't give us any information. So I don't know who they are at the Central Records Office in Kew, but I absolutely love them to bits because in a very backhanded, reversed way, they gave us all the information we'd originally asked for without giving anything away, without giving us any information. Yeah. But it's the best, it's the most disclosure in a non-disclosed secret document I've ever seen. Yeah. But they confirmed everything.
It's kind of like they wanted you to know that. They're saying, I mean, wink, can't say too much, but
nods as good as a
right.
wink to a blind donkey. Yeah. And it's 44 years or something after the event. And they're like, well, you've at least got a right to know that you're talking the truth. This actually happened and this is how it was. So now we've got official confirmation. We've got a set of official analysis that is officially extraordinary and mysterious in many ways. It's all there, that is total disclosure. We've officially done it. It's out there. It happened. It was real. Which I think is about the most disclosure we could hope for, really. Short of them actually telling us what the vehicle was it came off. We did do some extra study. There was another friend of Philip's that really did a deep dive. And he came up with lots of extra information. The biggest piece of information he came out for me was that there was actually a highly advanced bomber flying around at the time, or aircraft flying around at the time, somewhere around about the end of December, beginning of January, and it lost one of its tail fins. Now, that at that point, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what this is, but it doesn't fit the time, the location, the place, the disclosure, or the tests.
Hmm.
None of that fits in. And it did make the press, and it was reported as a lost tail fin, in a different article to the one that was sent to Gary. So it doesn't, how can I put
And
it? People are trying to knock it down. People are
mhm.
trying to, push it under the carpet, but not with a huge amount of success,
Wow. And a tail fin wouldn't take off.
Well, yeah.
If that crashed, you sure there'd be like an explosion and like,
Well,
uh,
you'd expect them to come whizzing in and hit the deck, and you'd find all the
yeah,
bits. And
yeah.
I mean, let's face it, a tail fin looks like a tail fin. This farmer's no idiot.
Hmm.
He knows what those sort of things look like. So, and as I said, it was reported at a different time in a different place
Yeah.
in a different newspaper. So it's not. We don't think it's that. Yeah.
It's incredible, man. Because I mean, the UFO, whatever this thing was, it did crash. Obviously, it's hit the ground, but it's gone back up. So
Well,
it's like a.
if you can imagine it coming down through the trees, because we reconstructed this on the DVD,
Mhm.
it comes in, it smashes through the tops of the trees. So thankfully, it didn't go lower down because it didn't hit any of the main tree trunks. Otherwise, goodness knows what would have been left of it. So it skims over the top of this forest, throws all this debris and branches forward. So that's what you get over the fields. But the bulk of it, whatever it was, then carries on and flies off, which kind of leads us to believe it was inside some kind of a force field or a bubble. Because at
Interesting.
high speed, high pressure, interdimensional, whatever the hell it was, it held itself together
Hmm.
and took off. But it wasn't designed to go through forest, through trees. So at high speed, it would stay together. But at low speed, when things are bashing it, really giving it some on the bottom of it, it smashed all the outer shell off it, and probably a few other bits and bobs as well.
Wow.
And that's what was in the field.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you said you reconstructed
Mm.
the land. Do you know roughly how big this thing was?
Well, we're working on the principle that this cutting, this scoop out of the trees, was about 25 to 30 foot wide.
Hmm.
So, given the fact there might be a little few bits that are sticking higher up, it's probably about 25 to 30 feet across. We actually reconstructed it as a flying saucer, as a
Hmm.
proper, as like a disc. And the reason we did that is that most of the fragments, having spoken to Irwell, having spoken to Gary, having looked at the evidence, most of the fragments are curved. So it's almost like the underside must have been curved on the outside. So therefore, why not curve the top as well? There's certainly curvature involved. So we did it as a traditional flying saucer.
Oh, man. Wild. That whole thing it's so interesting. I mean, as technology, I guess, gets better and better, you'll be able to send this out maybe in the future, in 5 years' time,
Mm.
whatever, and then maybe get even more information, possibly.
It's difficult to analyze the fragments because what did come out from the Greek analysis is they are over time, over a long period of time. Obviously, now it's going to end up being half a century. These fragments are slowly degrading.
Okay.
They don't rust, but they do start to break down. So the fragment we sent off to Greece for testing, it had things like water in it that had leached into the metal. So obviously the damp's getting at it. There was separation in the layers that was beginning to happen. And some of the elements actually they came out with could have entered the metal as part of the crash, or it could have entered the metal as part of them cutting through it and gone in as impurity. So the sample they got wasn't particularly brilliant. They did eventually manage to get some clean surface to work with, but it's just getting harder and harder as time's going on because obviously these pieces are degrading the same way that any ancient metal would, over
Hmm.
time. Um,
Wow. So the gentleman, the farmer's name, I forgot the farmer's name.
Irwell Evans.
Erwell Evans. He heard something He didn't actually
No,
see
no,
it.
no, 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 no. This is where it gets interesting.
Ah,
He put his sheep into inside the pen at the night, and everything was fine. And then he got up in the early hours of the following morning, and his sheep are still there penned up, but all the fields are covered in debris. And that was one of the amazing things. Nobody heard anything, nobody saw anything, nothing went flying overhead. You're only a mile and a half outside a populated village.
hmm.
If it was a jet fighter or something like that coming down, you'd expect to hear the,
Yeah, you'd
you
hear
know,
that. Yeah.
nothing, totally silent. And his
Wow.
farm's only at the bottom of the field, so you even if there was no bang, there was no explosion where everything got scattered or anything like that. That was one of the mysteries. There was no sound at all. No,
Wow.
no sound, no craft, no alien bodies, nothing like that at all. Just metal,
Yeah.
tons of metal all over the place.
And expensive metal that would cost a heck of a
Very,
lot of money.
very expensive metal that we didn't have in 1983, using technology in a way that we wouldn't have done in 1983. It stumped British aerospace. They had no idea what the hell it was in the 1990s, 15 years later. Um, Flying and doing things in a way that nothing at that time was capable of. You've also got to bear in mind as well that people forget this. If that technology turned up in a field in 1983, then chances are it must have been at least 5 to 10 years in development. So you'd be talking about us as human beings mucking about with that somewhere in the beginning of the 1970s. But there was nothing. There was nothing like that at all.
Mhm.
Absolutely nothing.
Man, wild. I remember when I was a kid and I was playing football on a field, and there were two planes like flying towards each other. And I don't think it was meant to be this. It wasn't because they nearly hit each other,
Mm,
and the noise it made them like avoiding each other.
yeah,
I remember seeing they're only like two small planes,
yeah, yeah,
commercial planes, but it was like so loud. It was so loud.
yeah,
We were all like, "What? Are they, those planes hit each other?" It was so loud. It was unbelievable. And so you would definitely hear.
yeah. I mean, this thing's lost, all its undercarriage and everything, and it's going to have to accelerate away. So,
Yeah,
under normal circumstances, you would hear it leaving, even if you don't hear the impact. And Irwell's, it would have gone pretty much over the top of his farm, and he didn't
yeah.
hear a thing.
Did
Absolutely nothing.
did you manage to find anyone else in the local area or anywhere that saw or heard anything?
Well, in the documentary we did in 2008, we went right through the village. We went door knocking, we made inquiries, church, post office, pub, all the usual. It was only a tiny village. In fact, funnily enough, we feature footage of the church and the pub and various other things because we thought, oh, we'll use these as cutaways, when we do interviews with people. Not a single person, nobody heard anything or saw anything. In fact, nobody even saw the crash recovery team. So they must have come in using B roads, gone straight to the site, and left the same way they came in. No memories of it at all.
Hmm.
Nobody seemed to have picked up on the newspaper article either. We just got, blank expressions.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
as you.
there is actually, I mean, people say, why didn't you show us where it crashed? Why didn't you show us the crash site? We do. It's in the documentary. There's
Mhm.
a panning shot at the beginning going across what appears to be snow-covered fields with music playing in the background. That's the crash site. There's
Oh,
absolutely nothing there to see. It's just a big space.
yeah.
That's it. That's all there is. So,
And
and
if
that's
the
what.
family don't want you to
Well, they
announce it,
didn't.
you
They
have
didn't
to.
want us to announce where it was. So, as
Yeah.
far as everyone's concerned, in the documentary, it's just a shot of Wales.
Hmm.
That's all it is. But we actually filmed it under snow. We filmed the fields, the crash site.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know that not from looking at the footage. This is the thing where sometimes reality doesn't make good television. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
dull, but it's there.
That
Yeah,
something incredible has happened there, that we
yeah,
can't
yeah,
explain.
yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's wild. You say 2008, and I know that's not that long ago, really, but well, it is
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
2008, how long ago is that? Quick maths. Uh,
10, 26, 7, 8. It's 18 years
yeah,
ago.
so it's yeah, it's
Oh,
a long time. But
yeah.
because you say it didn't pick up a lot of, I feel like now, if that came out tomorrow with the internet as it is now. You'd
Oh, you'd
think that
expect
would
it
like
to
blow up.
explode. Yeah,
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 yeah, with like the reels that you get on,
yeah.
and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like that would maybe
Well,
you're right. It was ahead of its time.
it was so far ahead, it's almost fallen through the cracks, you know.
Yeah.
And it always annoys me as well because you get things like the History Channel and Blaze and Quest and all that kind of thing, and they come in and they'll do a film and they'll go all the way around America picking up all these pieces of alien material and implants and all this, that, and the other. And I've never had a phone call. They've never come to me or to Gary. They've never come looking for this stuff, you know.
Hmm.
They've just left it well alone. Well, all that tells me is that we're right.
Yeah.
And I've said that right at the very beginning, right from the first day that
Yeah.
I had that chat with Gary back in the Indian in Blackpool. It's right
Hmm.
because it's covered up. They
Yeah.
don't want this information to
Which
come
we know
out,
they do. We know
which
they
they
do
do,
that. They
So
suppress
I'd just
information.
say to I mean, it's a great chance to plug the book. Just go out and buy the book. It's tiny, but it's available on Amazon. You can read it in about 3 hours or so. But visually, we haven't pulled any punches. It's all everything we know up to that point is in there. We've even put two of the reports, the analysis in full. We put the American one and the Australian one. We put both of them in full. Everything they sent us,
Yeah.
and nothing has really altered what's written in those reports materially since.
Hmm.
I keep saying to Philip, all these extra analysis and other bits of information that's coming forward. I do at some point need to write it up, but there's only enough to make a sort of half decent magazine article, really,
Hmm.
because it's all in the book. Everything we've got, we've put out. We're not hiding anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
But
is
it should be a really important milestone. This, it's a.
absolutely.
I mean, the advert, what I said in ufology is, you've got all these books on your bookshelf and they all don't have an end.
Hmm.
None of them reach a conclusion. Well, this book is the conclusion.
Yeah.
It's the physical evidence.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the hard, something is flying around out there that shouldn't be flying around, and we
Hmm.
can prove it.
Yeah. You got the Men in Black. You got everything
Oh,
going on
it's
there,
all in
mate.
there. Yeah, it's all in
It's
there.
wild, fast, but we do know that information gets suppressed when they don't want certain things out, especially in 2008, I guarantee it was a lot easier to
Oh,
block
yeah,
documentaries and things like
yeah,
press. I mean, now we're living in, I guess we're living in an age now where there's shows like this and loads of other shows that
yeah,
can talk about it, can put it out on our social media, and social media for there's a lot of bad, there's also a lot of good, and a lot of
yeah.
stuff gets out there. I know that sort of muddies the water a little bit, and there's loads out there, but it's still out there, which I think back in 2008, even though it's not that long ago, it was
Yeah.
a lot easier to control.
Yeah, we'd only just started to come to terms with the fact we were in 2000 and something.
Hmm.
We'd suddenly entered a new decade, a new century. Sorry, we'd suddenly entered a new century. So things were just ticking along the way they'd always ticked along at that point.
Hmm.
So yeah, we sold a lot of DVDs. I mean, it went all right on DVD, but then that only gets as far as the guy's DVD player or the girl's DVD player. It never goes any further than that.
Yeah.
But it was the American, like I say, the American reality films that put it onto Amazon,
Hmm.
and it did all right. It did okay.
Actually, I can't believe I've not seen that. I will find it. You said it's on YouTube or still on
Yeah,
Amazon?
I uploaded all my back catalogue about 2 years ago to a site called Drake, Michigan, and they've got it all on their welcome thing. At least they
Oh,
did
okay.
have, up to 2 years ago it was there,
Right.
and I'm sure there'll be copies of it knocking around Europe's Roswell. We're not selling the DVD anymore, and I don't think you'll find it on any of the channels like Amazon or whatever.
Hmm.
So hopefully it is out there. Hopefully you will be able to see it. But if you don't manage to do that, just grab a copy of the book. It's
Yeah.
only
I
about
want to get.
it's only about £6, 6.5 quid, I think. Something like
Wow.
that.
Wow. I want to get the book. I
Yeah.
want to see the documentary. If I'll find it and hopefully I can share the
Yeah,
book.
share the link.
The link for the
Yeah.
books and the documentary will be under this episode, so I will put it there.
Yeah.
And Mark, you've blown my mind again, brother. Fascinating stuff. I know you've kind of already answered this, but what do you think that object was? Like as a final, I know, and again, with this kind of stuff, I know opinions can change in a day. Mine does. My opinion changes multiple times a day. But what do you think that UFO, that object was, the UFO?
Right. Well, today,
Yeah.
I obviously am of the opinion that it was a physical craft of some kind. So the idea that these things are, ghosts or spirits or visions, or that they're not real, they're not physical. They are definitely physical. They are physically here. There's no argument to that whatsoever. I think we can prove that beyond any doubt. I think it was exotic technology, which is what the tests are showing us, based on actual empirical evidence. It was something that we were not doing, not using, and as far as I know, we're still not doing and still not using to this day. At that point, now, yeah, people could argue and say, well, it was an experimental craft of some kind, but that does not explain the crash. It doesn't explain how it happened, how it managed to fly away, everything that then followed. And we know that we're dealing with facts because of that disclosure from Central Records Office at Kew. So each time we've made a step forward, it's ended up being real. I am going to stick with it's got to have some kind of odd dimensional properties, electrical properties, and possibly stealth properties, because lanthanum pushes, like I say, a signal away from it. So if you were to bounce radar off it, you wouldn't see it. It wouldn't be there. So I think it's that's the league we're in. We're into something here that can appear and disappear. It can be visible, it can be invisible. Whether or not it's dropping in and out of time and space might be a stretch too far, but I'm leaning that way, but it's very hard to get evidence of that. Mm-hmm. So yes, it happened. Yes, it's a fact. Yes, we have factual debris. We have factual analysis. It definitely exists. That's it. It's real. It's real. But at the same time, we're still talking ufology. We're still in the world of UFOs. Mm-hmm. So I still think there's probably a lot to find out.
Yeah, man. It's fascinating stuff, man. Absolutely fascinating. I've got to ask you this as well, because it's very relevant at the moment. The AI Atlas object in the sky. What are your thoughts on that? I know it's a bit controversial. Some are saying a rock. Some are saying there's a type of metal. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I struggle with it. There's something that seems to be up there because they found it using, shall we say, official space technology. They've seen it. It's there. It's out there somewhere. Once you get past that, the amount of nonsense that I've seen batted about back and to, Elon Musk says it's the first of an invasion fleet. You name it, it's all out there, and most of it is internet disinformation or nonsense. I think it'll fly towards us, it'll fly past us, and it'll fly away from us. I think that's the sum total of it. What we can glean from that, what information we can get using science, I don't know, to be honest. There could be $100 billion of rare metals on that thing, and there's nothing we can do to get at it, I don't think.
Yeah.
It could be the forerunner of this whole idea that sooner or later the next great conspiracy disinformation thing is an alien invasion, and we're going to, with things like HARP and what have you, producing effects, and Operation Bluebeam, and you name it. It could be the forerunner, the precursor to that. But in the past, those kind of things have just not happened. Stuff has not materialized. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's a weird looking comet. I think there's more things in the universe than we know about, mm-hmm. And it's just another example of how little we know about what's out there beyond our Van Allen belts,
Absolutely. And will they tell us the truth anyway? Probably not.
Who knows? Who knows,
Yeah. It is fascinating. So I'm excited to do the moon landing episode with you. That'll be that'll be cool, because we can go down some rabbit holes there.
Oh, we can.
Mark, you're an absolute legend, man. Thank you so much for coming back. As I say, that there's a list of topics we can talk about, and I just love talking to you, man. It's fascinating, super interesting, and I love you, brother. So thank you very much, man. Can you tell the listeners? Yeah, so I'm gonna, as soon as we finish, I'm gonna book you in again.
Okay.
Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Right, okay. I always say the same thing. There's only 3 ways you can contact me, really, or find anything about me. The first one is if you want any of the books, they're all on Amazon, except one which is sold out because the publisher doesn't want to do another run. But anyway, so they're all on Amazon. If you want to find me, I'm on Facebook. You can send me a friend request. And as long as you're not Fifi Trixabel with a fairy and no photos, I'll accept you. And then, of course, The other way to get material from me is YouTube. Go and have a look at YouTube. You'll find Europe's Roswell out there somewhere. I'm positive you'll find the documentary. It'll be there, and shed loads of other stuff because, like I say, my entire archive's up there. So that's what you've got. You've basically got Amazon, Facebook, YouTube. You'll find me.
Awesome. I will share the links right now in the show description so people can go right now and find you. Thank you so much, sir.
Excellent. It's been a
You're an
pleasure.
absolute legend. Let's do this again soon. Guys, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, make sure you share it where you can. That is a great way to support the podcast. And we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. Keep your eyes up in the skies because there's a lot of weird stuff out there. It's very interesting. And we're just looking for the answers. Keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.